Hello and welcome everybody, and thank you for joining me again. My name is Wilky and I'm here to kick off my Battlerite Champion Spotlight series, where I will be quickly talking about the skill sets and the basics of each of the currently available champions, and I'll make sure to also do this on all of the future or released champions that we will be seeing in the future. Anyways, we'll be going over these in alphabetical order, at least for now. You may ask yourself though, why is this alphabetical order? What the hell am I talking about? Well, if you're familiar with Bloodline champions and you would take the old names they had, then you'd realize that these are actually that this is the order they would appear if they were to have their old names. I'm not sure if the developers did it on purpose. Maybe it's an Easter egg, maybe they forgot it. It might be that they used the old names during development phase and they just recently at the end translated them or changed names. So I'm not entirely sure why this is the case, but it doesn't really matter. Anyways, for the sake of demonstration, I'm gonna give myself infinite energy and cooldowns, and we're just gonna stand at this dummy here and taking a look at her left click, which is Toxic Bolt, that deals 12 damage on hit and inflicts Toxic. Toxic is a 12 damage over 6 seconds dot that is non-lethal. What that means is that this Toxic dot will not be able to kill enemies. As you can see, the dummy took another tick of damage from Toxic, but he will be steadily at 1 health, and that basically means that you cannot kill enemies with the Toxic debuff. So keep that in mind. If you hit an enemy that is low on health, make sure to actually finish them, because your Toxic dot will not do it. Now for the second ability, which is your healing ability, we have Healing Potion, which heals 14 damage on hit, and after that it also applies a heal over time, a hot, which is called Revitalize, which heals another 8 health or 4 seconds. And so we have 14 health and then 4 ticks of 2 every second to heal you or your allies, which is pretty good. Her space ability is Barrier, and boy, this one absorbs a whooping 50 damage, and I believe this is actually for now the currently strongest barrier in the game. However, it's there for a reason, because Lucie is literally, well, she's not the only character, but she's one of the 2 characters that don't have a proper mobility skill without including the axe ability. So this is kinda to make up for the pretty weak movement and mobility Lucie has at her disposal. And as I said, this one absorbs a whooping 50 damage, which is pretty damn good. It has a relatively decent cooldown, but as you can see, 50 damage is definitely a significant amount of damage it'll absorb. Her Q ability is called Clarity Potion. Now this Clarity Potion can be used both offensively and defensively. It will be removing debuffs from your teammates, such as stuns, roots, slows, fears, spell blocks, anything that somehow cripples or CCs your teammate. Also, it'll remove enemy buffs, so if they buff up with armor debuffs or something, this can be used to remove it, which is pretty handy. And it also knocks, it also knocks away enemies. However, it doesn't knock away teammates or yourself, so you can freely use it in battle to make sure it doesn't knock you away. However, it does knock away the enemy. Let me just kill this guy real quick. Her E ability is called Panic Flask, and this deals another 12 damage and inflicting panic. And what panic does is it'll send the enemy in the opposite direction from where the bolt came from at increased movement speed. For this one, it's increased by 25%. However, this can be broken if the enemy takes too much damage, and for this panic effect, you have a damage limit of 16. So what that means is basically, I cannot really show it for this because the enemy will die, but let's just spawn a new one. If I panic the enemy and the enemy will take over 16 damage, he will not be feared anymore and the effect will be broken. Alright, I'm super bad. You get the idea. I'm not really gonna wait anymore. But you get the idea that if you fear the enemy, you should try not to deal too much damage. Otherwise, the CC effect will be broken. Anyways, these are pretty much the basic abilities, so let's take a look at her X abilities. Her first X ability is her left click, which is then called Deadly Injection. And what Deadly Injection does is it'll slow the enemy for 2 seconds, and afterwards it'll deal a whooping 24 damage. This one is lethal, so you can actually kill enemies with this. Also, it has a relatively big AoE, so let me just set these guys up. And yeah, this should actually be good enough. This one will probably survive, so let's take a look. Deadly Injection, and all of these 3 guys died. So this is a pretty good CC as well as offensive ability for the cost of 25 energy. Her second X ability is changing her Panic Flask into Petrify Bolt, which works in a similar fashion. Whoops, that was the fear. However, instead of dealing damage, it'll petrify the enemy, applying a 20 HP shield to them. That means, similar to the Panic effect, the Petrify can be broken if you deal enough damage. However, the damage being dealt to the Petrify shield is not directly on the HP pool, so keep that in mind. It also petrifies for a whopping 3.4 seconds, so this is a very, very long time. If you manage to set this up properly, this can easily finish the game if done correctly. Now for her third X ability, which is her roll, which is on R. This is, as I mentioned earlier, the only real mobility skill she has. While it doesn't really cover that much, it is a very significant help, and it covers the main weakness of Lucie, which I said initially is pretty much the complete lack of mobility without spending any of her energy. So R takes care of that. However, it has a 15-second cooldown, which is pretty long for any mobility tool, and also it comes at a price of 25 energy. So keep that in mind when using this. However, don't always try to greed in for the ultimate, because your roll might actually save your time and maybe even your life or your teammate's life. For the ultimate ability, we have Crippling Goo, which deals a tremendous amount of damage in a relatively big radius. I actually threw 2, so this is what it's gonna look like in regular fight. But similar to the Toxic Dot, you can see that these enemies don't actually die from the Toxic Goo afterwards. However, the impact will kill. So as I said, with the left click, make sure that you finish the enemy off, because there's nothing more infuriating than if you land a hit and you believe the enemy is going to die, and then for some reason they are surviving. So definitely make sure that you are going to finish off your enemies. Anyways, this is pretty much the basic skill set of Lucie. I'm not going to talk about the Battlerites, because I think this is more of a specific topic for a more in-depth guide, and since I'm not too much of a Lucie player, I might not have the knowledge actually needed for that, but I'll definitely go and make more in-depth guide in the future. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed the Champion Spotlight for Lucie. And like I said, I'll definitely cover all of the other champions as well as the upcoming ones. If you want to know something specific or anything you like, dislike, feel free to let me know in the comments. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this first spotlight I did. And yeah, as always, see ya.